If I could leave this stage with anything in 2024, I would make this the year for all of you to finally be 100% accountable. Like if I can accomplish anything in this talk, if one person in this room just decides, finally, this year, I am going to blame 100% of the shit I'm upset about on myself, and realize that doesn't mean you're gonna be depressed and sad, it's gonna mean that you're gonna be happy because you can do something about it. We have become infatuated in pointing fingers. 2024 is here, we're gonna point a lot of fingers. We got an election year. You guys are gonna be real fucking sad this year. Do you know what my favorite thing is, like rolling around in life and hanging out with other entrepreneurs and winners, is when they try to blame them not having a good year after they claim they're so fucking gangster on a president. Let me just give you a news alert that you can sit with for the rest of your fucking life. If you blame the sitting president, Obama, Trump, Biden, Clinton, whoever's next, if you, as an entrepreneur, blame the sitting president for why you're not doing well, you're a fucking loser. I'm aware, this is a very nuanced statement. I'm aware that macro things happen under administrations. I'm just aware that millions of people aren't impacted by who the sitting administration is, and they navigate through the reality of it. That's just the truth. We have to get off this kick of blaming our parents for everything, our governments for everything, the platforms for everything. Here's an important nuance of what I'm about to say, because there's all sorts of shit. There's systematic shit. Parenting really does fuck people up. Governments do matter. Like, it matters. That's not what I'm saying. Please understand what I'm saying. If you are dwelling about it, it's already over. It could be 100% true. You don't think I have problems? You don't think anybody in this room, there's not a person in this fucking room, let alone the 8 billion people on earth, that can't sit in front of you and tell you 25 things that are fucked up for them. As if. The audacity that we have gotten into in society as thinking people have it good. And by the way, even if somebody popped up right here and says, I do have it good, everything's good, tomorrow they might not. Tomorrow might be the day that their sibling gets diagnosed with terminal cancer. Tomorrow might be the day where they make a misstep. Tomorrow might be the day when they walk out the door and get hit by a tree. That would suck. Why am I going here? I'll tell you why. Somewhere along the last 20 years of living a public life, talking about business opportunities, the first 5 years I was so confused of like, why are people not doing this? Like, here it is. Ready? I'll break it down. Making content on the 8 social networks that matter the most will lead to every single thing you want to happen professionally. As much of it as humanly possible. How many people here have consumed my content? Raise your hand. How many of you have heard me say that shit before? So now the question is, why not? I've been very consistent. So why do you not post 45 pieces of content a day? Yeah, I mean, like, the real question becomes, somebody will make an excuse of like, I don't have the resources or the time. That's cool, that's fine. It's like, you know, I think of business and I think about this combo we're having, like working out, right? Like, you can like read about push-ups. Like, there's a lot of you in this audience that consuming the information makes you think you're doing it. It's very true, brother. Like, how many more fucking books do you want to buy? I got a new one coming, so buy that one, but like, how many more videos? How many more courses? How many more conferences? For a lot of people, unfortunately, doing the process of this makes them think they're doing it. I'm not gonna go to a conference like this, I never did. Not that I'm better. I really need you to hear this. It's just that I just got raised in a way where I realized doing the work was the game, right? And I actually think it was my mistake to not go to things like this coming up the game, because sometimes you need to step out. Like, I actually regret not having a mentor coming up the game. I lived in my own cocoon. I regret not coming to conferences. As a matter of fact, the second I decided to go to conferences is how I learned about Web 2.0 and did all my Twitter and like, so I don't think it's wrong. I just don't want some of the people in here being career content consumers. And there is some career content consumers in this bitch right now. It's kind of like the way we talk shit on the internet, or the way we support shit on the internet. You think typing it out on Twitter means you did something. My friends, 2024 needs to be the year you finally do shit. But what's interesting is, the reason I'm bouncing back and forth is 2024, if you're gonna do stuff, I realized that it was the perspective. It was how you see the world, right? If you're not in a good place, it's hard. Like, one of the reasons most of you do not produce as much content as you possibly can is because you don't do well with the negative feedback when you do, or the performance of it not doing as well as you want it to. The thing that is breaking my heart is knowing how many of you are not posting what you really want to post because subconsciously you're concerned that it's not going to do as well as your normal posts. You're like literally living your life for the likes. There's so many people that want to get out of their niche, want to talk about something else, but because you're used to getting 413 to 515 likes, and you know if you took, every time you've ever stepped out, you only got 80 and it feels like shit, you're just staying in this pocket, and we just lack a fundamental relationship with losing. Do you know why I'm on this stage? Because I'm addicted to losing. Let me break it down for you. I'm addicted to losing. Now, I'm addicted to micro losing so that I can macro win. The reason I got hot 4 or 5 years ago in my content, for the ones that follow, about 8th place trophies is because we fucked the kids up with it. Why did we fuck the kids up with it? It was well intended. We didn't want little 7-year-old Johnny when he lost to be sad. I get it, that's sweet. If I brought a 7-year-old up right here, you'd be like, "Aw." Right? But if I was like, "Johnny, you fucking suck," you'd be like, "What the fuck, Gary?" But I would be doing Johnny a favor. What we did for the last 25 years in modern parenting is we demonized losing. We over-coddled, which was in theory optically looking like it was right, but what we did was we made them scared to lose. We took getting B's and C's and D's in school, which was already a problem in the 80s and 90s, and we took it into everything. We took it into places it should have never been. The only good thing about sports is it's non-debatable. You either won or you didn't, and we even fucked that up. And so now you have 22-year-olds who are just scared. They're scared to lose. If they get fired, if everything is the end of the world. Do you understand nothing matters? Nothing. Besides the health you have and the ones you love, what matters? Like, this is why I am able to the gentleman who introduced me said something very nice to me backstage. He's like, "Hey, I've been doing this a long time. I just want to thank you, because the reality is 99% of people are not authentic. They act some sort of way, but backstage they're not nice. I appreciate you're like that." It meant a lot to me. But let me tell you why I'm like that. It's because when I get the claps and the accolades and the dollars and the followers, I can't hear it. I don't think I'm special. I understand that I'm good at business, okay. You're good at shit too. I suck at a lot of things. If the world was predicated on how good you are being handy around the house, I'd be a fucking loser. By the way, I was a fucking loser from 1st to 12th grade, going back to me being addicted with losing. The reason I'm good is because the world told me I was bad my whole life. When you get D's and F's in the 80s and 90s, your parents, friends, your friends' parents, and every teacher, every grown-up you know in the world tells you you're a piece of shit. So I got used to it. Do you know how easy it is to not give a shit? When you got used to not giving a shit? Anybody that thinks the President of the United States, whether it's Barack or Donald or Bernie or Hillary, is gonna help them, they're a fucking loser. Straight up. I promise you, you are. That means you need somebody, whether your president is for minorities and females, or your president is, for the 26-year-old white male that's got no skills, here's the punchline. The market is the market. What is the 54-year-old gonna do? Adjust. Or lose.
Right, but how do we get that message out to say, you know what, you can probably drive a truck till you're 55, you can program and tech and do those till you're 90. Talking to BMW, they said that they can't get enough kids to be technicians because their theory is the old mechanic with the big grease on his shirt. I was talking to the head of the heavy machinery operations, meaning crane operators. They said their jobs are empty for 15 months. These kids can go to school for 1 year, come out, make $150,000, but yet they're going to a school. 50% of them will retire with a title of a job that doesn't exist today. They're staying in school for 4 years, half of them is digital classes, they're leaving with $300,000 in debt and they still don't know how to operate anything. So how do we get the parents in this room to save that money? How do we get the kids in this room, well not the kids in this room, but who's gonna watch this online, to understand what they need to do and move ahead and not think a diploma is gonna save me, the president is gonna save me, welfare is gonna save me, or anything else? What happens then? What needs to happen?
Carnage. Carnage needs to happen. People are complacent. Here's most people's strategies in life.
You're holding your breath.
I mean, I really have no passion for this conversation. Like, if you are not capable in 2017 to Google shit and figure out what's going on in the world, fuck you. I'm being dead serious. By the way, I'm being really serious. Like, what role does the government play, or thought leaders, or this and that? Whatever that cliche statement of like the teacher comes when the student is ready, right? I believe in that thing. Like I don't know, lots of things happen. Like lots of things happen in life, right? I woke up one morning and realized, you know what, this liquor shipping law is never gonna get better. There's dirty politician money, they're gonna keep paying this off, and I'm not gonna spend the rest of my life worrying about what the right thing to do is and what's right. No, they're gonna keep paying off politicians state by state, and because I'm the biggest, I'll always be picked on. So I adjusted. I started over. Like this whole wine library thing, and I got so lucky, guess what? I own 0% of Wine Library because it was under my father's name, so I had no collateral to even start it. I started VaynerMedia by getting somebody to pay me $80,000 to do a marketing campaign, and I built it. And so that's what's gonna happen, and everybody has their version. Not everybody has my business talent to build billion-dollar companies, but if you're making $74,000 or $197,000 or whatever you're making, and your market gets fucked, I don't see truck driver Johnny feeling bad for Rick, the bookstore owner, because Amazon came along. This has happened forever. This is not the first time that innovation fucked shit up. Nobody's crying for the farmers in middle America. Nobody's crying for the people in Cleveland who own the docks. This is what always happens. So this is what's up now. And so what 55-year-old Charles has to do when he is out of a job is get another job. Whatever that job is. So if Charles is smart and has skills, he's teaching himself something now to be ready for 3 years from now. But Charles wants to watch football. But Charles wants to drink at the bar.
So he needs to put his 20% into what's going on in the future.
Mister, that's right.
And bank that.
You're damn right. I've made a lot of money investing, and I've lost a lot of money investing. And I've built 2 very successful companies with my hands, and then I've also started Resi, the restaurant app, inside of VaynerMedia, and I had a direct-to-consumer wine brand called Empathy that I sold to Constellation. So I've had wins, and I've had plenty of losses. The only common thread of the investments, the boards I sit on, The only common thread, there's a million variables of what makes somebody win. Sometimes the CEO, she or he is just too talented and they fucking will it to success. Other times there's some random outside factors. People get caught at times, there's things. But the only common thread that I see in the world of making something win is how much the locker room likes each other. That Eagles team was uncomfortably talented. Every dude in that locker room was out for themselves and didn't give a shit about their teammate. That's why they lost so much. When I think about the crossroads of the business world we live in today in the consumer lens, when I think about what your competitive landscape will look like, both on Bevmo and GoPuff in the next decade, the only thing that is clear to me, besides the fact from afar and getting to know them, I think your founders are really strong. Besides that, what is very obvious to me is the outcome of your financial winnings here, your enjoyment here, and what it sets you up for. Because the best part is, with all respect to the founders, everybody else, the best part of winning at GoPuff during this era is what it sets you up for in 7 years if you win at a company like this during this era. That's real talk. That's for your grandchildren. And so there is so much uncomfortable upside in this room, but I genuinely believe, regardless of how talented the top 7, 10, 15 people are in this company, the most obvious variable of how well that all plays out is how well the 1,000 people in this room get along. I really believe that. Not on some grandma sappy foo-foo woo-woo shit, on some I only care about winning, I love business, I've done it my whole life, and all I do is observe. And it is the only common thread I've seen. And so I ask you, as I bounce off this stage, to consider that framework, because I think the upside's there for you. And if you can find a way to be the bigger person, if you can find a way to scale the unscalable, first for each other, and then for your customers, I think you win. I'd like to see you win. Because I'm a Jets fan, and I don't get to win a lot. And so, I like to see others win. That's actually not true. I want to confess something, because I just need to get this off my chest. This feels like a good medium. There was obviously some big football games this Sunday. For the people that do know, actually, how many people here do know about me and consume some of my content? Can you clap it up? Thank you. So for those people in this audience, you're aware I'm a pretty optimistic, fucking positive dude. But there's one version of me that isn't. Football Gary. And Football Gary is why I understand why people are on tilt around politics and around other shit. Because it's the only place where I don't have my emotions in check and I'm not proud of who I am. And I just want to get this out because it's important to get shit out. I just want to confess something. This Sunday, when the Lions were dominating the 49ers, I thought going into the game that I was rooting for the Lions, especially because my brother and I have a sports agency and we rep 5 Detroit Lions, including Aiden Hutchinson. So naturally I thought, but Sports Gary kicked in at halftime. And I realized one of the things I most believe in the world, that I ask all of you to pay attention. There's a lot of sayings in life. The most real one is misery loves company. A lot of people in this room are fucked up right now because they're spending too much time watching the news or their social media feeds, watching people that are trying to drag you down into their unhappiness by selling you fear. Misery loves company. In real life, I limit misery. I limit my relatives and friends who are not happy, who are trying to drag me down. I'm there for them, but I limit it. In football, Gary, I don't. I'm super mad, and I hate everybody. Who's a Patriots fan? Yeah, I fucking hate you so much, bro. The biggest things that I'm thinking through is one thing that I asked Dan actually in the green room, like, talk to me about the, like the stock options, things like that. It's like owners. And I'm like, that's super interesting because I think that gets it really motivating really fast, right? Like back to like people in the trenches real quick. I'm not want to make sure that people understand like the upside of that game. I think when things are on paper, it's been, I'll tell you the story that most hit me when I understood the stock option play. I was like, Facebook was obviously my biggest win in my career, right? And last night, ironically, going through social, I got home late around midnight and I saw that the stock market had a big day. I tend to look at my portfolio once every 3 months. But I just happened to see oh, Dow Jones went off. I'm like, oh, let me look. And I saw that Facebook was at $400 a share. And immediately I got the worst pit in my stomach, not for me. From the day I invested in Facebook 4 years before its IPO to this morning, I've never sold a share because I believed in the founder. Right, obviously I'm very aware of what people think about Zucks and the way the media's played it out, but as the guy driving it, I always told my whole family that the day he's out is the day I sell, but until he's out, I hold forever. The reason I'm bringing it up is what I'm most fascinated about 2024, what I'm most fascinated about every employee in here at this moment in the history of GoPuff's company as a complete outside observer who watches the game, is I'm fascinated by people's lack of patience. The reason I bring up this Facebook story to you this morning is because I was early at Facebook, because I made a video in 2007-06 that said Facebook should be worried about this new app called Twitter. And it went viral inside of Facebook and I got called to go give a speech. Check this out. The entire company of Facebook at the time when I gave my talk of why Twitter was gonna be a thing was half the size of this audience right now. It was early. I didn't even know Zucks was in the audience, back to how weird and different he is. He was in the way back and I did my spiel. And in 2006, I said, social media is gonna win because it's human behavior. That's it. The reason everybody wears the hat and the clothes they wear is to communicate to others. The reason we buy fancy cars is to communicate to others. Almost everything we do as humans is to communicate to others. Obviously with our mouths and the way we roll, but with subtle shit that you don't even realize. Every photo you ever posted on social is subconsciously something you're trying to say. Position yourself. Front at worst, or communicate your truth at best. And so that's how it is. And so I understood that. Anyway, that struck a chord. We hit it off. We had dinner. And I invested in Facebook very quickly after that. And I mean all of my savings. I bet the farm. The part about patience that I want to talk about in 2024 is about what happened next. 3 years later, it went public. Over those 3 years before it went public, I got to know a bunch of the top 100 execs. When the stock came out, some of you might remember this because you were youngsters, or it was a big moment. It opened at about $40 a share, 42. It went down to 19 pretty quickly. Most of the friends that I made in those 3 years that were top 300, 400, first 500 employees at Facebook sold somewhere between 25 and 19. They made a lot of money. The ones I knew were there super early and very senior. They made a lot. Nope, this story is not to cry for those motherfuckers. What's interesting is seeing them over the last 10 years. What's interesting for me is someone who got in for much less, much later. The fact that I'm gonna end up making more money on Facebook than a lot of those people fucks with me. And it was just one big game of lack of patience. And so I think what I'm most focused about in 2024 personally is thinking about that. How much of my decision making is based on tomorrow and how much is it for a year from now? You know what I love about retail? What I love about retail is the signature story that is still told in my dad's liquor store, even though I haven't been there day to day for a decade, is a story of December 18th in our store when I was the most important salesman on the floor. And it was snowing and we had just done the internet thing for the last 4 or 5 years. And we got a phone call from a woman in Bergen County, New Jersey, who was not yelling at us. She was like, when I got on the phone, she sounded like fucking Yoda. She was like 1,000. But she was complaining that it was important for her to get, and this is a good one, especially for the Venmo crowd, her Behringer White Zinfandel. Rosé used to be sweet. for all of you that don't know, in America. Her Behringer White Zinfandel had not been delivered, and it was a whole to-do, and her son called and says, you don't understand, and the FedEx that got delivered. Anyway, punchline is this. In one of our busiest days of the year, off of me learning about this while I was on the floor from the internet department, I ran downstairs to the warehouse, grabbed a 15-pack of Behringer White Zinfandel, threw it into my car, and drove to Bergen County and delivered it personally and drove back and was off the floor for about 2 or 3 hours. During that time, many top dog customers came in, only willing to work with me, ready to spend $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 on their collection, and left. When I got back, the core crew was like, what the fuck? What I knew then, and I did many things like this is the one I just get to tell on stage. What I knew then was, actions have to set the tone for a culture. What I knew was I was gonna take an L in the short term on that day. But I felt that it would be something that everybody in the crew, especially because I knew I was looking to build long term, and the 20 people that were around me, I was hoping and played out, would be there for 10, 15 years. I needed something to point to for them to understand what our DNA was. Both on the corporate side and in the trenches here, I think we think too short term. The reason I tell that story is with the hope that one person decides, like, that makes sense. When I face something tomorrow, do I think about it from the short-term reality of it, or do I think about it as, is this an opportunity to set the tone for what we're trying to do? I think that kind of mentality of patience and brand building and culture building is everything. You know, to me, for example, this event. With this event, when I was asked to do it back in the winter, I was so pumped that you were all gonna be together. I remember just thinking like, yes, that's exactly right. And I'm a businessman, and I'm paying attention. So I'm aware of what's macro going on with GoPuff, and they're trying to be strategic about what they spend their money on and not. And I'm like, good for them to understand this. Like, for example, what he just did was fucking phenomenal. I hope I dropped 3 or 4 things that make you think about something and maybe do something. This will be a good day of like content, I'm sure. But everything that happens on this stage today is bullshit compared to if you take advantage of all the downtime, all those minutes in between lunch break. I don't know what the fuck, you do lunch? Your lunch? I don't eat lunch, I think it's a complete fucking waste of time. I think that the thing that I'm most thinking about of like, what's everyone in here thinking about? Like, how are they thinking about this year? I think perspective is a big focus of mine. I think that how one sees life is how it is, right? I've been very like weirded out by this whole half glass full, half glass empty thing. And that really struck me too as I thought about this talk. I'm like, just wondering how people are thinking about shit at GoPuff, right? Because for me, again, just to put it to, actually, how many people here know very little about me or have no idea who the fuck I am? Just raise your hands real loud. All right, that fucking hurts. Let me actually, I thought that might be the case, so let me give you 3 seconds on this to set up what I was about to say. So real quick for everyone who just raised your hands, I was born in the Soviet Union, I immigrated to the US, we lived in Queens in a studio apartment with 8 family members. It was ghetto fucking, you know, immigrant shit. Like, by the time I was 8, I realized my parents aren't buying me toys or video games, so I was fucking straight. Lemonade stands. Like, when I was 7, because we moved to Edison, New Jersey, when I was 7, I literally tricked or manipulated or convinced or motivated my 6 best friends to stand behind lemonade stands all day long. And this group is way too young, but for the couple of you that are in your 40s or above, I don't know if you remember back in the 80s, we had something called big wheels. They were like that, you remember that shit? I used to ride my big wheels at like 5 p.m. during the summer. At the end of the day, I would ride my big wheels to the 6 lemonade stand locations that I created and picked up my money like I was fucking Tony Soprano. And then I went into baseball cards. I was making like $2,000 a weekend selling baseball cards in 7th and 8th grade. In 1985, Like real talk, when you have $10,000 in cash under your bed and you're 11 and you're not selling weed, you're a fucking entrepreneur. And then, thank you. Then my dad ruined my life. I was making all this money and then I turned 14, oldest son, born in the old country. My dad went from a stock boy making $2 an hour in a liquor store to owning a small store in Springfield, New Jersey. And so merchant's son, like I had to go work there. And I went from making $1,000, $2,000 a weekend, selling baseball cards in the malls in New Jersey, being cool and fucking living, to making $2 an hour, working 14 hours a day in my dad's liquor store. And I mean every day. I don't know how many of you have a Soviet father, but it was like no bullshit. It was 14 hours a day, 7 hours in the basement bagging ice for the cooler and then coming up and stocking shelves. And that like became the foundation of my career. Then I realized people collected wine. And then in 1996, I launched one of the first e-commerce wine businesses in America called Wine Library. Blew up my dad's business, and that kind of is how my career took off. My dad really didn't, again, how many people here are immigrants, like their parents were born outside the US, or you have? Raise your hands. So you guys know, like, my dad didn't pay me shit. Even though I worked from 22 to 34 in that liquor store, I built that business from a $3 to a $75 million business, and I never got paid more than $80,000, $90,000 a year, even though I did all that. And so I had to go do my own thing. I believe the long tail of influence, personal brand, I believe every human is about to be the small business.
Yes.
Just like there's 8 trillion small businesses, not everyone becomes fucking Verizon and BMW.
Yeah.
But there's a trillion small businesses. I believe the small businessification of personal brand, the micro influencers, it's real as fuck.
And personal branding is
And so this
critically
is why
important.
when someone who's so inspiring and doing it says, I've got this flash in the pan, I got this 15 minutes, I like to jump in because I need these people listening, especially the million that will listen to this podcast over the next 12 months, to understand this is not a miracle. Mm-hmm. This is not far-fetched. The internet is at a scale now.
Yeah.
Distribution of information is in a place with social. Algorithms you could have never done what you did if TikTok wasn't around.
No.
I was there when Facebook and Twitter and YouTube was the case. You had to build a list and then people would see. It did take 4 years.
Yeah.
Now, one post.
You
because
can
of
be
the way,
viral. Because of that explore page.
Go ahead, so?
So I end up quitting my job. I bank $100,000 in cash, and I'm like, that's my parachute money. Yep. Didn't need it. I end up crushing it, and last year I think the reported number, what we actually collected was probably close to like 4 million in terms of revenue for the company.
Yep. What are the revenue streams?
So obviously we've got just the platforms paying us little to nothing.
Right.
Brand partnerships is a huge
Real
chunk.
thing. Yep.
Book advance. I got a pretty healthy advance.
Makes sense.
Podcast ads.
Yep.
Great.
Makes sense.
I do quite a bit of speaking.
Love.
And then right now in the works, we're working on some TV stuff.
Good for you.
Yeah.
On the speaking part, just because I'm always business developing, you should definitely talk to Vayner speakers. You may be thrilled with who you're talking to, but we're really crushing.
I love that.
What's the book about, and why should everybody who's listening buy it? Because I genuinely, obviously we have some mutual friends, but I can't comprehend anyone listening to the last 20 minutes not realizing that you are wildly sharp as fuck and super capable. So I'm gonna assume, because I continue to, it's scary to me what I put in day trading attention for like $20. Like literally companies pay me $500,000 for an hour of what I put in this book for $20. I continue to believe now that books are like the weirdest, best deal in the world.
Yes.
Because people like ourselves don't want to write a shitty book because it's pride.
Yes.
And then thus rendering the content very valuable.
Yeah.
And the cost is nothing.
Correct.
So my intuition is that every person that listens to this podcast ever should buy it based on you. So I guess that's how I buy books. Even though I don't buy books, that's how I would buy books because I don't read them, but that's how I would process if I was a reader. The hypocrisy of kids being mad at their parents when they're on the payroll blows my mind.
You can't.
If they pay, they have say.
And it's why I told my parents they could not contribute to my wedding.
Love.
Because I was like, you can't tell me which band to pick. You can't tell me what appetizers, nothing.
It's a very real thing.
Yeah.
It's the best decision I made too when I was a kid. And way too many people are such fucking hypocrites. They literally complain about their parents are involved and they meddle, And the only reason your parents have any leverage, besides you love them and you want to like...
Is the payroll.
Is the payroll. Get off the fucking payroll. So, got it. You went to this great school. You were obviously a good student. You knew you wanted to be off the payroll and you wanted to have independence. And you're like, cool, finance also, if I crush, it can get real lucrative.
Yeah.
And let me consider that. You get into a couple years and you just realize there was other things you wanted to scratch.
Not so much that, but I think a lot of us joined.
Did you like it?
I did at the beginning. I had a really great mentor, a really great manager. As Wall Street shakeups do happen, the head of my desk ended up getting let go, brought in a completely new guy, fired half the team. So suddenly the team looks very different. Then I end up getting assigned to a new manager who...
It didn't click.
It didn't click, but also he made some real nasty comments. Things like, you're too girly to be here, and didn't like how my nails click-clacked on the keyboard, didn't like...
Oh, so like really went old school that way.
Very old school, and like...
And you're like, fuck this shit.
Yeah, like I shouldn't have to put up with that. Like I know how smart I am. I know what I can bring to the table. And like, that's the bare minimum, right? Like you shouldn't say shit like that to me at work.
So you're like, fuck you, I have options.
Yeah.
You decided the jeans, let me see what the BuzzFeed's selling, this, that.
Yeah.
When you get there, a bunch of kids... And because you were in an environment that did have financial literacy, now you got a real look at the broader world.
Everybody else.
And you're like, fuck, no one knows shit.
Nobody knows anything.
Right, and obviously, tongue in cheek, this is annoying, I'm getting asked a lot, let me make some videos for y'all. You also, because you were at BuzzFeed and because you're a human in society at this point, you knew that. And maybe some of this content will click and it may open up other opportunities and doors.
Not even. I really made this as like, hey, this is going to be like a fun little passion project my friends are going to watch.
But you are smart enough to know.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are making content of like fantasy sports and like I can buy, but I can't buy, back to your point of like, fuck you, I have options, don't make fun of my clicking, that you had to know, and some of these may click and it may lead for things for me to think about.
I think
it had to be in the back of your head. You weren't delusional.
Yes, a tiny piece of my mind was like, maybe my content goes amazingly viral and this can become something, but I certainly wasn't
there's a point
banking on this.
That I respect.
Yeah.
But I think it's the biggest point I want to make to the audience watching live on Twitch, by the way, podcast, if you want to watch these things live, twitch.tv/Garyvee, EE. But like, the point I'm making is I believe it is, let me use an interesting term. I believe that it is grossly negligent as a human in society today to not post videos around your singular either knowledge base or passion base.
Yeah.
I think it makes borderline no sense. I'm aware of insecurity and worried about what people look like, worried about negative comments, mental health. Like if you get most people don't have enough self-esteem to deal with the no views, or I know why people don't do it.
Yeah.
But I believe it's insane.
There's just so much opportunity there.
Correct. And this window's real. And like the fact that like, I also think that people like things. People like Star Trek. People like the Avengers. People like wine. People like bourbon. People like cooking. People like
but here's
people
the
like
other
things.
Thing.
Please.
There are influencers that are truly influencing and their brand is themselves, which I think is so incredibly challenging. These are people like the Alex Earls, the Tinkses of the world. But for all the rest of us, I don't have to put every single personal detail about myself out there. To your point, knowledge base or passion base, it's such an easy way to get into this world that so many people, what is it, the stat is like students or children like 15 to 18 right now, like 50% of them want to be YouTubers. More. This is how you get it.
As a matter of fact, I think the people that are living their lives like reality TV will continue to decline because that is the hardest game.
Correct.
Once you give the world your life, you don't have one.
And it gets picked apart.
I am wildly out there for the last 17 years. For the last 17 years, I have posted on the internet every day.
Yeah.
I am out there. I have plenty of followers. I don't post anything about my personal life.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people think you have to go there.
Yeah.
I've never posted my children in my life. Mm-hmm. People don't realize you're in full control.
Yeah.
Anyway, the reason I wanted to rant on that is I just love that you had a knowledge base.
Yep.
You did some stuff, and here you are with like an iconic book. Like you have options now. Whether you want to like, I just like optionality.
Yeah, agreed. It's freedom. It's
freedom.
Choice. The same reason why you want to have money. The same reason why you want to have.
How fast did the first when was the first? So you started posting where?
Yes.
TikTok, Instagram, YouTube.
TikTok.
Okay.
First video, January 1st, 2021. First 7 hours, I think the video got 7 views. Then that night, I'm watching a movie with my now fiance, and my phone starts to get like hot. You know, like when your phone just starts to overheat.
My phone's always hot.
Right, exactly. Phone starts buzzing off the hook. Like, I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, that's weird. I have 7,000 followers. That's way more followers than I have on my personal Instagram. And like, I'm like, I don't even know if I know that many people.
So real talk, that's insane.
Yes.
Real talk, you're one of those people I talked about 6-7 years ago for TikTok that literally actually first video hit.
First video went viral.
And by the way, for everyone who's watching and listening, that game is not as real now.
No, it's not.
It's always supply and demand of attention, like I've talked about. This is why oh, by the way, let's do a plug. Day Trading Attention coming out this summer. This is the one, but this is the game. You were, back to your background.
Yeah.
You were day trading attention.
Correct.
So literally the first one hit.